Okay, so you want to talk about AI-generated text, huh?
Yeah.
Well, buckle up, because we're going deep on this one. We've got some fascinating research to unpack, especially this paper on something called the RoFT dataset.
Yeah, it really gets to the heart of this question we're all asking these days. Can you actually tell the difference between something written by a human and something cooked up by a machine, like ChatGPT, for instance?
Right, like is there some kind of digital fingerprint that gives it away?
That's the million-dollar question, and that's where this RoFT dataset comes in. It's basically a collection of texts where human writing and AI writing are all mixed up together, kind of like a linguistic puzzle.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So how does this RoFT thing actually work?
Imagine you're reading a story, and at some point, an AI takes over the writing without you knowing. Your job is to figure out exactly when that switch happened. That's the idea behind RoFT. It's like a game. They even made a tougher version called RoFT ChatGPT, specifically designed to test against, ChatGPT.
Oh, wow, so they're really putting these AI detectors to the test, but how do they even begin to measure something like that?
Well, one of the methods they use is something called perplexity. It's a way of measuring how surprised a language model is by the text it's reading.
Perplexity. Huh. Sounds complicated.
It's actually not as complex as it sounds. Think of it like this. Human language is full of surprises, right? We use slang, we make jokes, we go off on tangents. AI, on the other hand, tends to be more predictable, smoother. So the higher the perplexity, the more likely it is that the text was written by a human.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like AI gets confused by our weird human quirks.
Exactly. And that's one way to try and spot the difference, but it's not foolproof.
Right, because AI is getting better and better at mimicking human language all the time.
Exactly. And that's why researchers are always looking for new and better ways to detect AI-generated text.
Well, the paper also mentioned something called TDA. What's that all about?
Ah, TDA. That stands for topological data analysis. It's a branch of math that's all about shapes and structures.
Shapes and structures. How does that relate to language?
Well, the idea is that you can analyze the shape of language in a text. Imagine each word as a point in space, and the relationships between words creating a kind of map.
So it's like creating a visual representation of the language.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that TDA seems to be more stable than perplexity when it comes to different types of writing, like news articles versus poems, for example.
So it's a more robust way of analyzing the underlying structure of the text.
You got it. It's still early days, but TDA could be a key to building more reliable AI detectors.
Fascinating stuff. But did the researchers look at anything simpler? Like something that's easier for us non-math whizzes to grasp?
They did. They also looked at something as basic as sentence length. Believe it or not, humans and AI tend to write sentences of different lengths on average.
Really? I never would have thought of that. So I guess I write like a human then because my sentences are all over the place.
Huh. Well, it's just one piece of the puzzle. No single method is perfect. The key is to look at all the evidence together.
It's like those detective shows where they have to piece together all the clues to solve the case.
That's a great analogy. And speaking of clues, were there any AI models that were particularly tricky to detect?
Yeah, I'm curious about that. Like, did they try using ChatGPT itself to spot its own creations?
They did. And it's kind of funny because it actually worked to some extent, but it wasn't foolproof. It seems even ChatGPT has trouble fully recognizing its own reflection in the linguistic mirror.
Yeah, wow, this is making my head spin. But in a good way, I feel like we've barely scratched the surface here.
We definitely have. This is a field that's constantly evolving, and the more we learn about AI, the more we learn about ourselves. It's like holding up a mirror to the human mind.
I love that. So what were some of the other surprises they found? Like, did anything completely throw them for a loop?
One of the most interesting things was that sometimes the detectors got tripped up by really bad AI writing, the kind that's full of errors and inconsistencies.
Wait, so you're saying the detectors were better at spotting good AI writing than bad AI writing? That seems counterintuitive.
It does, right. But it suggests that the detectors might be picking up on those imperfections, those inconsistencies, as a hallmark of human writing. Think about it. We humans are messy. We make mistakes. We change our minds mid-sentence. Maybe those flaws are part of what makes our writing unique, what makes it human.
That's a really profound thought. Our imperfections are actually a signature of our humanity. But tell me, with all this talk about different types of writing, did the researchers look at how the accuracy of these detectors changes depending on what kind of text they're analyzing?
They did. And it turns out that certain types of writing are much harder for the AI to analyze correctly. For instance, recipes with their structured format and specific vocabulary really threw the AI for a loop.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have thought recipes would be easy for AI to mimic since they're so step by step.
You'd think so, right? But it seems that even though AI is great at following algorithms, it still struggles with the nuances of human taste and creativity.
I love that. So even when AI can mimic the structure, it still misses the soul?
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most fascinating findings of this research. They discovered that the perplexity of a text can actually fluctuate within a story. And those peaks often correspond to plot twists or shifts in focus.
Oh, wow. So the math is reflecting the emotional arc of the story. That's incredible.
It is, and it raises so many questions. Could we use this to analyze the structure of narratives more deeply? Could we even use it to predict what will keep a reader engaged? It's a tantalizing glimpse into the potential for using AI, not just to mimic human language, but to understand it on a whole new level.
This is blowing my mind. We started out talking about detecting AI-generated text, and now we're talking about unlocking the secrets of storytelling. This is why I love deep dives. They always take us to unexpected places.
You said it. And speaking of unexpected places, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the real-world implications of all this research.
Yeah, let's get down to brass tacks. What does this mean for things like education and online trust?
Those are the big questions, and we're going to tackle them head on. So let's talk education. I mean, with AI getting so good at writing, think about the implications for teachers trying to grade papers. How can they be sure that what they're reading is actually the student's work and not something an AI spit out?
Yeah, it's like plagiarism, but on a whole other level.
Exactly. And it's not just about catching cheaters. It's about making sure students are actually developing those critical thinking and writing skills that are, essential for pretty much anything they want to do in life.
Right. If you just let AI do all the work for you, you're never going to learn how to think for yourself.
You got it. But there's another side to this coin too. Some people argue that AI could actually help students become better writers.
Interesting. How so?
Well, imagine an AI that could give you feedback on your writing or even generate ideas to help you get started. It could be like having a personal tutor always available.
I see your point.
Mm,
So maybe it's not about banning AI altogether, but finding ways to use it responsibly in the classroom.
That's the key. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Makes sense. But let's talk about another big concern here. What about the impact of all this on online trust?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't tell the difference between human-generated content and AI-generated content, how can we know what to believe anymore?
That's a huge issue, and it's something we're already grappling with. Think about the spread of misinformation and fake news. AI could make that problem a whole lot worse.
Right, because if anyone can create a convincing fake news article or a social media post using AI, well, then it's like, what's even real anymore?
Exactly. That's why this research on detecting AI-generated text is so important. It's not a silver bullet, but it's a step towards addressing these risks.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a minute. Couldn't you also use AI to fight misinformation? Like, what if you trained an AI to spot fake news or to fact-check articles automatically?
Absolutely. And people are working on that right now. It's like a double-edged sword. AI can be used to create problems, but it can also be used to solve them.
So it all comes down to how we choose to use it.
Precisely. It's about being aware of the potential risks and benefits and making informed decisions.
Okay, so we've talked about education, we've talked about online trust. But what about the impact of all this on creative fields like writing and journalism? I mean, if AI can write a novel or a news article that's indistinguishable from something written by a human, what does that mean for the future of those professions?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's one that a lot of people are worried about. But I think it's important to remember that AI, at least for now, lacks that spark of creativity, that true empathy, that deep understanding of the human experience that makes for truly great writing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. It's like AI can mimic the form, but can't replicate the soul.
You nailed it. And I think those qualities, those uniquely human qualities, will always be valuable, even in a world where AI is writing bestsellers.
So you're saying human writers aren't going extinct anytime soon?
I don't think so. I think AI will become more of a tool for writers, kind of like a collaborator. Imagine bouncing ideas off an AI or having it help you with writer's block. That could free up human writers to focus on the things that AI can't do, the things that make their work truly special.
That's an interesting way to think about it. It's like AI could take care of the grunt work and let the humans do the creative heavy lifting.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe it'll even lead to new forms of creativity that we can't even imagine yet.
This whole conversation has really gotten me thinking about the relationship between humans and technology in a new way. It's not just about the tools we use, it's about how those tools are changing us, how they're shaping the way we think and create and communicate.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a co-evolution. We're shaping technology, and technology is shaping us. And the line between the two is getting blurrier all the time.
And that brings us back to this whole issue of detecting AI-generated text. Because as AI gets more sophisticated, our methods for detecting it have to get more sophisticated too. It's like a constant game of cat and mouse.
You got it. And it's a game that's only going to get more challenging as AI continues to evolve. We're going to have to stay on our toes if we want to stay ahead of the curve.
It's almost like an arms race, isn't it?
Yeah.
AI gets smarter, we get smarter. But is it a race we can actually win? Or are we destined to be forever playing catch-up?
That's a tough question. And I don't think anyone has the answer yet. But I think the key is to focus on what we can control, which is our own understanding. We need to educate ourselves about AI, about its capabilities and its limitations. We need to develop our critical thinking skills so we can be more discerning consumers of information.
You're right. It all comes back to education. We need to teach people how to think, not just what to think. And that's more important now than ever before.
Couldn't agree more. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to shape the future of AI, not let it shape us.
Well said. This whole deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. It's clear that AI is going to have a profound impact on our world, and it's up to us to make sure that impact is positive.
I couldn't have put it better myself. It's a time of great opportunity and great responsibility, and I, for one, am excited to see what the future holds.
Me too. But before we wrap things up, is there anything else from the research that you found particularly striking, something that really stood out to you?
You know, one thing that really stuck with me was how some seemingly insignificant details can actually throw off AI detectors. Like the researchers found that inconsistencies in a text, which we might think of as a sign of human error, could actually trick the detectors into thinking it was human written.
So you're saying that sometimes bad writing can actually look like good writing, at least to an AI.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? But it just goes to show that these detectors are not perfect. We can't rely on them blindly. We still need to use our own judgment and critical thinking skills.
That's a good reminder. So even if a piece of text seems a little off, we shouldn't automatically assume it's AI generated. It could just be a human having a bad day, or maybe they're just a bad writer.
Huh, exactly. We need to be careful and avoid jumping to conclusions. These detectors are tools, but they're just tools. We need to use them wisely.
This whole deep dive has been full of twists and turns. It's like we've been on this amazing intellectual adventure exploring the frontiers of language and technology.
I love that analogy. And just like any good adventure, it leaves us with more questions than answers. But I think that's a good thing. It keeps us curious. It keeps us searching. It reminds us that there's always more to learn.
Well said. And to our listener, I hope you've enjoyed this journey as much as we have. It's been a real pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listener, keep those questions coming. Keep exploring. Keep pushing the boundaries. Because the future of AI is, in many ways, up to us.
It's wild to think. We started off trying to figure out how to tell if a machine wrote something, and now we're talking about using AI to like decode the secrets of human creativity. It's like this whole conversation has just blown the doors wide open on what we thought we knew about language.
It really has. And to me, that's the most exciting part of this research. It's not just about building better AI detectors. It's about using AI to understand ourselves better, to understand what makes us human, to understand how our minds work.
Totally. Like think about that finding we talked about earlier, how those perplexity peaks can actually point to plot twists in a story. It's like, whoa, hold on a second. The math is actually lining up with the emotional beats of the story. That's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. It's like we're finding these hidden patterns in human creativity, these underlying structures that we never even knew were there before. And that could have huge implications for all sorts of creative fields, not just writing.
Right. Like imagine using AI to analyze music or art to figure out what makes a song catchy or a painting captivating. It's like unlocking the code of human expression.
Exactly. And it could lead to all sorts of amazing things. Like imagine composers using AI to create music that's specifically designed to evoke certain emotions. Or architects using AI to design buildings that make people feel calm and inspired. The possibilities are endless.
I know, right? It's like the whole world of creativity is suddenly bursting wide open. But and I hate to be a downer here, but we have to think about the potential downsides too, right? Like, what if this technology falls into the wrong hands?
You bring up a really important point because as powerful as AI is, it's really just a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil. Think about deep fakes, for instance, AI-generated videos or audio recordings that are so realistic they're practically indistinguishable from the real thing.
Yeah, that's scary stuff.
Mm.
Because if you can't trust what you see or hear, then what can you trust? It's like the whole foundation of reality starts to crumble.
Exactly. And that's why we need to be having these conversations now. We need to be thinking about the ethical implications of AI. We need to be developing safeguards to prevent it from being misused. We need to be proactive, not reactive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just some sci-fi fantasy anymore. This is real. This
Mhm.
is happening now. And we need to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
So to our listener out there listening to this, I want to say stay informed, stay engaged, stay critical, because the future of AI, the future of humanity, really depends on it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This is a turning point in human history, and we all have a role to play in shaping what comes next. So let's make it count.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible deep dive. It's been an honor exploring these ideas with you.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listener, thank you for being a part of this conversation. Keep asking questions, keep challenging assumptions, and keep pushing the boundaries. The future is ours to create.